If you've ever struggled to keep viewers watching your videos, then this video is for you because today we are talking all about storytelling. It's the main thing that YouTubers are missing in their videos. There's a few frameworks that we're going to share with you in today's video and tell good stories at will whenever you want at a drop of a dime. So go ahead and stick around and let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, so when it comes to storytelling on YouTube, I've done a lot of research and stuff. There's one video that's always stuck out to me, and I've seen it many, many years ago, probably like 8 to 10 years ago at this point. And that's the one that I want to share with you today, Grant, and I also want to share with our audience here on the Video Creator Show. So the way that I like for this to go is I'd like to just play this video. And this is Kurt Vonnegut, and he is a writer and a humorist. And this video has kind of been re-edited, but here we go. Let's just watch it. And you are about to get some really good storytelling frameworks. Here we go.
I'm stoked.
This is the GI axis, good fortune, ill fortune. Sickness and poverty down here, wealth and boisterous good health up there. Now this is the BE axis. B stands for beginning. E stands for electricity. So we'll start a little above average. Is why get a depressing person? Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. People love that story. They never get sick of it. All right, another story called Boy Gets Girl, but it needn't be that. Just a way to remember it. Start on an average day, average person, not expecting anything to happen a day like any other. Find something wonderful, just loves it. Oh, God damn it.
I'll pause it right there. What's your first impression of this whole thing?
The biggest thing is there's a problem. Like, I remember being in first grade and my teacher saying, if you're going to tell a story, there needs to be a problem. And I feel like what Kurt Vonnegut is getting at here is it starts with some kind of ideal life, usually. Like, something good happens where we, as the viewer, are like, oh my God, I would love for that to happen to me. We're vicariously experiencing this wonderful moment through the character here. And then when something goes wrong, that's all too relatable, right? I mean, that seems to be how life goes. When things are going well, there's always a part of me that's like, when's something bad gonna happen? So in that sense, this feels like real life and the basics of storytelling I've always heard. So I think he's onto something. It's almost like Kurt Vonnegut knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. And the first one he showed right here was just life is going on, then uh-oh, and then it gets better, And I think that's the simplest form, right? Like when I looked at all these, a couple times before, I've always kind of like looked at them. I'm going to use this in my next thing that I write, my next YouTube script. And I'm always like, it's too complicated to come up with something good, then bad, then good, then bad. But this one right here, I think, as long as something bad happens, like you just said, right, the problem, then there's can be some way to resolve it. And there you go. You got a story. All right, let's go ahead and keep this video going. Boy Gets Girl.
People like that. Now, it so happens that this is the most popular story in our civilization, Western civilization. We love to hear this story. Every time it's retold, somebody makes another $1 million. You're welcome to do it. We're going to start way down here.
I like this one. Man.
Worse than that, who is so low? It's a little girl. What's happened? Her mother has died. Her father has remarried a vile-tempered, ugly woman with two nasty daughters, big daughters.
How about Cinderella?
You've heard it. Anyway, there's a party at the palace that night. She can't go. She has to help everybody else get ready. She has to stay home. Now, does she sink lower? No. She's a staunch little girl, and she has had the maximum whack from fate, which is the loss of her mother. She can't go any lower than that. Okay, so the fairy godmother comes. Gives her shoes, gives her stocking, gives her mascara. Gives her means of transportation. Goes to the party. Dances with the prince, has a swell time. Boring, 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 boring. Now, there's a slight inclination to that line as I've drawn it because it takes perhaps 20 seconds, 30 seconds for a grandfather clock to strike 12. Does she wind up at the same level? Of course not. She will remember that dance for the rest of her life. Now, she poops along on this level till the prince comes to shoe fits. She achieves off-scale happiness.
All right, so I'll just pause it right there. The last one, obviously, like I said, he was telling the story of Cinderella, and a timeless story. And I think it's interesting because those are the complicated ones where it goes up and down and up and down. But it's interesting because the difference here is starting with ill fortune. How does that work in the YouTube world, man? How can we start and tell stories that start with ill fortune?
Well, I think the big opening where you're describing the ill fortune or giving a cinematic representation of the bad situation feels like the best way to get that across. So with YouTube, right? So this is different than the fairy tale of Cinderella, right? I think with YouTube, it tends to be more personal. So let's say this is more of a, I'm going to say vlog, but like it doesn't have to be vlog necessarily. Like let's say you're telling a story about yourself and like a problem you're dealing with. So the biggest thing is just like you want to bring the viewer into your world. Like what is the problem? How does it affect you? And you're going to want to describe how it feels to be experiencing this problem. Maybe you, like if you have footage of you or like some situation that happens, you want to show it. But I think the biggest thing is just to like describe it to the viewer, like be able to articulate your feelings and why this whole situation is important to you. Like I would say just your ability to speak about how you feel is probably going to be your biggest asset in being able to describe this ill fortune. And then, yeah, from there, you're going to want to like that. Then it's like, okay, how do you get out of this? And I think that's kind of the next thing we want to get into here.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, it's your hook too, right? Like if you look at the starting point of all these lines right here, like your hook can set you up. So if you're going to talk about, I don't know, how you lost $10,000 or something, then your hook can set you up to start like, how I was down to my last, $10,000. The business was going under, and then all of a sudden, I got a new partner. He invested $100,000 in the business. Everything's going good, and you can start telling a story. And then he ended up stealing everything. And like I'm just looking at that yellow line right now. That's a good way to make it go up and down. But in your hook, I think that's where you choose where are you starting at in your story. Where are you? Do you have good fortune, just no fortune, or ill fortune? So that's kind of one way that I'm kind of like thinking about this, and as far as storytelling on YouTube. Is there anything else you wanted to add there, Grant?
No, I think just being creative about how you describe things, and like really, I think what's interesting about YouTube is you can really take people into your world in a way that like you didn't really exist in movies. You can get very personal, and I think it's worth being creative, even if it's just like, the showing your room and it's like a total mess, and maybe your house is a mess, and maybe you look like shit, and like I just like kind of bring people into it, man. It's, and I like what you said about kind of the starting a business and there's an investor, and I think like bringing people through the motions and the story of your life is so like YouTube is such a good platform for that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So, you hear people talk about it, storytelling, it keeps viewers engaged, it keeps them watching. What do we want on YouTube? We want the algorithm to like our videos, and watch time is a huge part of that. So with that said, how important is storytelling in the whole scheme of thing on YouTube? How important is it in regards to titles and thumbnails and topics? Where do you place it, man?
I think, storytelling is so old. It's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years old. And so I'm going to say it's the thing, right? And there's different kinds of YouTube videos, right? So if you're more of an infographics kind of show, like even that, I would say like Kurtz of Vagat, whatever, like their video on like why smoking is awesome, but then it's kind of like basically trying to convince you not to smoke, right? So they actually start from that high point, right? Of like smoking is great. Like it fills your dopamine receptors and you feel that buzz, and it's like really going into the details of like this is incredible. Like even though it's an informational show, you don't think of those videos as a story, but if you dive into it, it actually is a story. So we start with the positive, right? Of the euphoria of the hitting a cigarette, of taking a drag. But then it goes like it shifts, the line goes down, and now it's the bad stuff. It's the depression and talking about all of that. So even the way they tell a story, it's still a story. Like you wouldn't think of it that way. And I think even if you're trying to do informational videos like that, you want to respect the arc and the art of storytelling. So I think it's everything. I think storytelling is everywhere. And if you're really going to succeed, you need to respect it.
Yeah, no, that's a great little soundbite there. I want people to think of it too, like on another more macro level. Cause right now I feel like we're talking about like in your video and your scripting, like their video should have some storytelling and it should be entertaining, like someone's how-to video so cut and dry and boring. But I also want to do like the overarching story of you and your content, right? Like some people, and I love this kind of content. It's like every video kind of links together in an overarching story of what you're doing in your life or what goal you're chasing. I can think of, like the 30-day Ryan Trahan stuff. Like this is one big overarching story that we're trying to see what happens in the end. Is he able to reach 50 states in 50 days or whatever, the penny challenge stuff he does? It's like this big story. Like, is Augie able to grow vid shops? Or, like that's kind of where my head is with the content that I want to create is like, I want to tell the story of vid shops and me as a content creator and stuff on YouTube. But at the same time, I want to like educate, business owners and people trying to create videos. But I don't want to say like, okay, first you got to do this. Rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3. Like I feel like so much how-to content is, I want to say like, learn from this mistake when I was, 27 years old when I first started on YouTube. All my videos had poor audio and blah, blah, blah. And I can tell some story. That's the advice that I'd like to give our viewers is what's the overarching story to your YouTube channel? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. Like in not so much about the overarching story to the channel itself necessarily, but like each video I think needs its own arc, and maybe the channel itself also has an arc. Like I sometimes, and we've talked about this on the show, where some people's channel is all about building a business and they're kind of doing it with the audience, and that's the arc. And every video has like it's every video is like a microcosm of that macrocosm of building the business, right? I think that makes sense to me. Like you really want to know what you're going for here and why you're telling this story.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's continue to give the audience some more value, like, and tips that we're just digging these out of our brains, you guys, from two guys that have been creating YouTube videos for over 10 years long, individually. So here, if someone wants to level up their storytelling in the next video that they make, let's say they've never really considered this. They've been creating kind of some cut and dry videos. Like what's one piece of advice that you'd give them, when it comes to making their next video?
I would say get more in touch with your emotions and be able to understand yourself. Like if your videos are too cut and dry, that tells me that you're too in your head, you're too intellectual about it, and you're not speaking from the heart. You don't understand why you're doing this. Like maybe you just want to be famous, or you haven't really tapped into your true reason for why you're on YouTube, in my opinion. Like I think whether you're making art or even like informational videos, like you making basketball tutorial videos, like you're a basketball coach, like years later, like you're not running that channel nearly as much now, but you're still coaching because it's important to you. Like there's, I think, a sense of mentorship that really gives you meaning, and you're tapping into that when you're making basketball videos. And I think you probably understood that from the beginning of, like, you knew your why from the beginning.
Yeah, totally. Like the very first time I started releasing basketball training tutorials was like, it was actually like, hey, I want to make some videos because the kids that I actually like work with and coach in person, I want to like give them videos. Right. And that's where the whole thing was kind of like, oh, well, there's actually another business behind this, and there's a way to actually grow an audience. And I actually took all those first videos down. I said, oh, because there was no talking or anything. It was literally just me doing the drills, and I'd send them to the kids. I think like I'd shouted out, being vulnerable. I think people love that in content, man. Like on YouTube, a lot of times it's the super fans that are watching every single video that you're able to eventually turn into customers, or if not customers, super fans that, maybe join your Patreon or do things that allow you to be a full-time creator, which is the goal for most people that are creating YouTube videos. Whether you're going to sell products or not, you want your audience to, 1,000, you want your audience to have 1,000 true fans that'll give you $20 a month, and now you're making $20,000 a month, right? That's kind of how YouTube works for so many people. And so being vulnerable and telling your story is going to allow those people to say, you know what? I'd like to get to know him a little bit more. Here's $20. Let me get on your Patreon and get on calls with you, or whatever you offer on your Patreon. So yeah, I think it's scary though, Grant, because like who wants to tell their, put their personal business out there? So what kind of advice do you have for people in regards to that? I mean, with your channel Treesicle, you weren't really talking about your personal business. You guys were, talking about other people or other video games characters. So that's easy. But what about talking about yourself? That's kind of hard.
So that's interesting. So like I'll give an example with Treesicle. So even the first video that really took off with Treesicle was about Samus Aran from Metroid and delving into her lore. And I didn't get personal with myself directly, but at the time I had a lot of existential anxiety and like a lot. I was like 22, and I just sort of how to put this, just a lot of anxiety about the nature of reality, and I'm just like I didn't feel comfortable existing is really what it came down to. So I was hungry for like philosophical truths and to like understand the nature of reality, and I'd spent the last few years kind of like digging into that and working through these things on my own. And then when the opportunity presented itself with that Samus video, I talked about Samus being the bridge between all forms of consciousness in the universe. Like she's traveling between all these planets, and she, with the technology she has in her suit, she's able to commune with all these different alien beings. So like even that philosophical perspective was born out of what I was able to create from my existential anxiety. So like, it's not personal, but it also is kind of personal. Like I wasn't directly talking about these things I was struggling with, but so in that sense, you can talk about what truly interests you, and it becomes personal in an indirect way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is personal because you're putting yourself out there, and you wonder, are my family members going to see this? Are my friends going to see this? Who's going to see this? So yeah, I mean, it's nerve-wracking for most people to get on camera, period. We've talked a lot about that in the past. But there's something to this storytelling stuff that I think is also therapeutic in a way. To get things out and to be a little vulnerable can be nice, especially if you have a community of viewers that are going to support you and stuff like that, which, you know what, I think for the most part, as long as your video doesn't go viral to the broad audience, you'll get that. But the way it works, right, is if your video gets a lot of views, it's going to be to a lot of people that have never heard of you or seen you before. And that's where some judgment could come from. But hopefully your core audience has your back. So, all right, Grant, so storytelling, let's give the audience, the viewers right now, some names of people they should check out who do a great job of storytelling. I'll drop the first one. The easiest one is Mr. Beast, right? Everything has a story. Go watch his content these days, and there's always ups and downs and drama. One big example is recently he had a video where somebody lost, I think, 100 pounds in 100 days, or it was a year. I think a year. And during that time, he had a trainer, and that coach actually even passed away and died. And there was all this sad parts of that video. And and it just made for a great video as far as just, you know, the kind of the ups and downs. But give us some names of some good storytellers out there.
Sure. So I would say Van Neistat, the brother of Casey Neistat. He is a master storyteller, and there was one video in particular that stands out to me. He made it a couple of years ago, and it was about his struggle to make videos. Like, he always felt like getting things done on time and being reasonably efficient always sucked the fun out of it, right? So, like, he has his dream job, but he's stressing out essentially every day trying to get things done. And so in this video, he brings on a friend of his who is super funny and charismatic. He's just like hilarious. And he's not like a very productive person, or at least like relative to Van Neistat, it seems. So he kind of like brings this guy on board for this video. And they're working on a project. It's like creating a rope swing for his son, kind of going through all of the struggles of making this swing happen, making it fun, but also safe. And he starts the video by talking about this problem of like needing to make these videos on a reasonable time frame, and how these videos are very meaningful to him, but it almost feels it feels existentially unfair how stressful it can be to get it done. And, you know, within the first couple minutes, you're really drawn into like, yeah, I feel you, man. I get this. I get it. So then when he brings his friend in, it's almost like a relief. It's like, oh my God, you know, finally we can relax. And those guys hilarious. They're like going through Lowe's and trying to buy the right rope for the swing, and they can't find the right rope, and Van's stressing out and his friend's cracking jokes. And it's just like, you know, eventually they're able to build the swing, but it doesn't quite work. And it just like the story unfolds, and it's like he starts from the low point, if my memory serves me. And then it goes high again when his friend gets there. And then the ending is a little ambiguous because they do build the swing, but it like doesn't quite work out. It's not safe. Like, he's not gonna put his son on this swing. his like 4-year-old son. But like, he tried, and it was an interesting experiment. And even though it was just kind of a home improvement project, like there was a story to it. And it was really cool and fun, and I really related to what he was feeling in it.
Nice.
Van Neistat.
Van Neistat. And I mean, Casey Neistat, right, is the original storyteller. He's kind of the first person to tell great stories on YouTube. So it makes sense that his brother kind of trained by him or trained him. Who knows? But okay. Yeah. So like, here's the thing. As you're viewing YouTube, as you're clicking through videos and stuff, like, start to pay attention to who's telling good stories and what you like about them, maybe what you don't like about them, and start incorporating them into your own videos. And hopefully that helps the watch time, and hopefully just allows you to make better videos, because that's the name of the game. So, all right, Grant, is there any final thoughts that you want to talk about when it comes to storytelling on YouTube?
Just, I want to hone in on the power of being in touch with your instincts and not overthinking things. And like, yes, you want to be aware of these storytelling arcs. But I think if you're really like tapping into your instincts as a creator, then a lot of this will flow naturally, and you'll probably realize that it's mapping onto this thing that's already like this storytelling formula that's existed for hundreds of thousands of years. So, you know, don't be afraid to get deep with yourself.
All right. I hope you guys liked today's video. I hope you guys liked that video that we shared. You could just search up his name and you will find that video on YouTube. There's a longer version as well, so go ahead and check that out. Those are the 3 story arcs that he shares in that video. So, all right, go ahead and leave a comment if you can think of any other YouTubers that you think tell good stories. I'd love to check them out myself. We check all the comments, and if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Bye, everyone.